The universe is cold, cold and indifferent. Endless voids stretch far beyond thy, with stars shimmering faintly like distant memories. For all its vastness, space was never meant for humans, and yet, here they were, surviving and thriving because that's what humanity does. No matter how hostile, how unforgiving, how dark, humans always find a way to light up the shadows. Commander Sarah Vega stared out of the viewing port of the Eclipse, a lone spaceship drifting in orbit around an alien planet, a barren, forgotten rock. The ship systems hummed softly, keeping the crew safe, for now, but Vega's mind was elsewhere on the mission, on the crew, on what it means to be human after all they had been through. Commander, came a soft voice from behind her. Lieutenant Carter, young, but battle-hardened beyond his years. We're approaching the coordinates. Sensors are picking up faint signals. Vega nodded, not taking her eyes off the void. We'll land soon. Prepare the team. As Carter left, Vega clenched her fists. This planet was supposed to be dead, a lifeless husk abandoned eons ago. Yet, it had called to them, a beacon in the darkness, and humanity, curious and defiant, answered. The landing was smooth, but the air outside was thick, charged with tension. The crew, clad in reinforced exosuits, disembarked. The swirled around them as the eerie silence of the alien landscape engulfed their senses. What lay ahead was a vast, crumbling city, alien in design, yet somehow familiar in its desolation. Commander, said Carter, pointing to a flickering light in the distance. There, it's coming from the center. Vega motioned for the team to move. They advanced cautiously, weapons drawn, senses heightened. The light grew brighter as they approached, but it wasn't just light, it was warmth, a sensation they hadn't expected from this cold, dead world. As they neared the source, the shadows pulled back, revealing a massive structure, a temple, ancient and alien. Its walls lined with strange glyphs and etchings. At its core stood a glowing obelisk, pulsating with a faint, rhythmic hum. Is this it? Carter asked, his voice tinged with awe. Vega stepped forward, her eyes scanning the glyphs. They told a story, one of an advanced race that had once thrived here, but the story ended abruptly. A great calamity had befallen them, snuffing out their civilization. All that remained was this beacon, a light in the dark, waiting for someone to find it. And now, they had. It's a warning, Vega whispered, and a message. What kind of message? Carter asked, stepping closer. The light, it's not just light, it's energy, it's knowledge, Vega said, her mind racing. This is their legacy. They left it behind, hoping anyone would come and finish what they started. As she spoke, the obelisk responded, its hum growing louder, its light intensifying. The glyphs shifted and changed, morphing into something new. English words appeared, etched across the surface. You are the chosen. Illuminate the void. Chosen, Carter frowned. What does that mean? It means, Vega said, stepping forward, her hand reaching out to touch the obelisk, that humanity was always meant to rise in the darkness. As her fingers graced the surface, the obelisk's light exploded, enveloping them all. For a moment, there was only blinding brightness, but then, slowly, the light faded, leaving the crew standing in silence. Vega blinked, her vision adjusting. The obelisk had gone dark, its energy spent, but she felt different, stronger, wiser. Something had changed within her, and as she looked at her crew, she knew they felt it too. We've been altered, she said, her voice steady but filled with awe. Altered how? Carter asked, checking himself over. We've been given their knowledge, their strength, Vega said, realization dawning. They wanted us to carry their torch, to bring light to the darkest corners of the universe, to finish what they started. A new light burned within Vega now, not just the light of the obelisk, but the light of hope, of determination, of humanity's unbreakable will. Let's get back to the ship, she said, turning towards the horizon. We have work to do. As they made their way back through the desolate city, Vega felt the weight of the universe on her shoulders, but she smiled, because if there was one thing humanity was good at, it was lighting the way forward, no matter how dark the path. And in the vast, cold void of space, one thing was certain, the light of humanity would never go out. The return to the Eclipse was filled with a new sense of purpose. Commander Vega could feel the weight of the knowledge coursing through her, a gift and a burden left behind by the long-dead civilization. As the ship's ramp lifted, sealing them inside, the crew fell into an uneasy silence. They had all been changed, altered, but what that truly meant was still sinking in. All systems online. The voice of the ship's AI, Orion, chimed in. Commander, should I set a course back to the fleet? Vega hesitated. Returning to the fleet would be the logical choice. They needed to report their findings, analyze the new data, and make sure the crew was medically sound. But something deep inside urged her to go further, to push into the unknown. The obelisk's message was clear: illuminate the void. Whatever that meant, it wasn't something they could ignore. Commander, Carter asked, glancing at her from the control panel. Not yet, Vega said firmly. We're not done here. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had all felt the pulse of the obelisk, the surge of something beyond their understanding, and it had left a mark. The question was what kind. Are you sure about this? Carter asked, his tone cautious. We don't even know what we've been given, or what it'll do to us. I'm sure, Vega replied, her voice unwavering. This isn't just about us anymore. The obelisk, the message, it's bigger than that. Whatever those beings started, they entrusted us to continue. We can't walk away from that. The silence hung heavy in the command center, but no one objected. They all knew she was right. Orion, pull up a star charts. Let's see what's near this system. The AI complied, displaying a holographic map of the surrounding sectors. Most of it was uncharted space of vast stretches of emptiness, with the occasional star or planetary system. But one thing caught Vega's eye. There, she said, pointing to a faint blip on the edge of the display. That system. It's got a small nebula and a few planets in its orbit. A nebula, Carter frowned. That's not exactly a prime exploration target. Too unstable, too dangerous. Which is exactly why we need to go, Vega replied. Whatever was left in that obelisk wasn't just for us. It's a guide, and I think that nebula is our next step. Carter sighed but nodded. All right, setting a course. As the eclipse powered up, Vega settled into her command seat, her mind racing. There were so many unknowns. How had the obelisk altered them? What was waiting for them in the nebula? And, perhaps most importantly, what had built that beacon in the first place? But more than that, there was a feeling deep in her chest, a burning sense that they were on the verge of something monumental. Humanity had always been explorers, pioneers pushing the boundaries of the known universe, but this was something more. This was destiny. Hours passed as the ship neared the nebula. The faint glow of the distant gases cast a haunting light across the viewport, bathing the crew in an ethereal glow. Entering the outer perimeter of the nebula, Orion reported, radiation levels are within acceptable limits, but the readings are fluctuating. Steady as we go, Vega ordered. Prepare the scanners. I want to know what's inside. The ship plunged into the swirling mist, the nebula enveloping them in a cascade of colors and energy. The view was breathtaking, but Vega remained focused. This was no ordinary nebula. There was something else here, something hidden. Commander, Carter said, his voice tense, I'm picking up an anomaly that ahead. It's faint, but it's there. On screen, the display flickered, showing what looked like a massive structure, half shrouded in the swirling gases. It was ancient, much like the ruins they had seen on the planet below, but this one was intact, a colossal ring, rotating slowly, pulsing with the same light they had seen from the obelisk. That's it, Vega whispered. That's what we're here for. As they approached, the ship's systems began to flicker, overwhelmed by the sheer energy emanating from the structure. Orion struggled to keep the ship steady. Radiation levels are spiking, Carter warned. If we get any closer, we're risking a system shutdown. Bring us as close as you can, Vega ordered, her eyes fixed on the ring. I need to see it up close. The ship slowed to a crawl, edging toward the massive structure. And then, without warning, the ring began to hum, its light growing brighter until it was nearly blinding. The crew shielded their eyes as the ship was enveloped in a glow. Suddenly, the hum stopped, the light faded, and the ship system stabilized. Vega opened her eyes to find that they were no longer alone. Hundreds of ships, small and sleek, emerged from the nebula, surrounding the ring, each one pulsed with the same energy, their designs unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were not of this world, they were not human. But they were waiting. Commander, Carter began, but Vega cut him off. They're not hostile, she said softly. stepping toward the viewport. They've been waiting for us. Us? Carter asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Humanity, Vega replied. This is what we were meant for. We've always looked up at the stars, always searched for meaning in the darkness, and now, we found it. The alien ships moved in unison, forming a protective barrier around the eclipse, and then, in a moment of clarity, the message from the obelisk became clear. They were not conquerors or invaders. They were the keepers of the light. Vega stood tall, her heart pounding with the weight of her realization. Prepare for first contact, she ordered, her voice steady but filled with awe. Humanity just took its next step into the stars. And in the vast, cold darkness of space, the light of humanity shone brighter than ever before. The bridge of the eclipse was silent. Every pair of eyes was fixed on the alien ships, their elegant forms floating with a serene grace that belied the unimaginable power they contained. Commander Vega felt the weight of the moment, the gravity of what was happening. They were standing at the threshold of first contact with an unknown species, perhaps the very race that had built the obelisk, perhaps something else entirely. Commander, Carter said quietly, do you think they know what we are, what we've become? Vega didn't respond immediately. Her gaze was locked on the largest of the alien ships, hovering just ahead of them. It seemed to be waiting, its lights pulsing in sync with the energy that had flowed from the obelisk into the crew. There was a connection between them, something that went beyond the mere physical. She could feel it. I think they do, she said at last, and I think they've been waiting for us for a very long time. Incoming transmission, Orion announced, breaking the tension. Unknown language, attempting to translate. Vega's heart raced. This was it, the moment they had prepared for, the moment humanity had dreamt about for centuries. On screen, she ordered. The main display flickered, and then a figure appeared. It was humanoid but distinctly alien. Its skin was a pale, shimmering silver, and its eyes glowed with a soft blue light. It wore a flowing garment that seemed to shift and change color with every movement, almost like it was alive. The alien's gaze was calm, calculating, as if it had been studying them for far longer than they could know. Greetings, the alien said, its voice smooth and melodic, though the words were processed through Orion's translation matrix. You have awakened the light. You are the chosen. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Vega took a deep breath and stepped forward. I am Commander Sarah Vega of the Terran starship Eclipse, she began. We are explorers, but we have encountered something that has altered us. We believe it was left by your people. The alien's eyes narrowed, though its expression remained serene. The light was not ours to give, Commander Vega. It is ancient, older than you, older than us. We are but its guardians, its stewards, waiting for those who could carry it forward. Carry it forward, Carter interjected, unable to contain his curiosity. What does that mean? The alien turned its gaze toward him, its blue eyes glowing brighter for a moment. Your people are young, you have much to learn, but you are strong, resilient. It is why the light chose you. Chose us for what? Vega asked, her voice steady despite the tension. What is the purpose of this light? What are we supposed to do? The alien tilted its head slightly, as though considering its response. The light is a gift, and a burden. It is knowledge, power, and responsibility. Those who possess it are charged with a great task to bring order to the chaos, to shine a path through the darkness that consumes the stars. Vega's heart pounded. The enormity of what the alien was saying hit her like a wave. This wasn't just about humanity, discovering alien life, or finding a new technology. This was about changing the very fabric of existence, about shaping the future of the galaxy itself. Why us? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because you are not bound by the past, the alien said, its tone gentle but firm. You are not weighed down by the mistakes of your ancestors. You are free to shape your destiny, to chart a new course, and the light saw this in you. Vega swallowed hard, trying to process the weight of the alien's words. She had never thought of humanity as anything more than a small, struggling species, fighting for survival in an uncaring universe. But now, standing before this ancient being, she realized how wrong she had been. We will not fail, she said, her voice filled with a newfound determination. We will honor the gift we've been given. The alien's lips curved into a small smile. I believe you, Commander Vega, but the path ahead is not easy. There are other forces in the galaxy that seek to snuff out the light. They will see you as a threat. They will come for you. You must be ready. Ready for what? Carter asked, his eyes wide with anticipation. War, the aliens said simply. A war for the very soul of the galaxy. The crew fell silent, the weight of the aliens' words sinking in. Vega clenched her fists, her mind racing. This wasn't what she had expected. They had come to this planet as explorers, but they were leaving as something far more. They were soldiers, now soldiers in a war they had only just begun to understand. We'll be ready, Vega said, her voice cold and resolute. Whatever comes, we'll be ready. The alien gave a slow, solemn nod. I hope so, Commander, for your sake, and for the sake of all who depend on the light. The transmission ended, the alien's image flickering out of existence. The crew sat her day in stunned silence, the reality of their situation sinking in. War, Carter muttered, shaking his head. I didn't sign up for this. None of us did, Vega said, standing tall, but that doesn't matter now. What matters is that we have a duty, something bigger than any of us. The light has chosen us, and we have to see this through. She turned to face the crew, her eyes blazing with determination. Prepare the ship. We need to get back to the fleet. There's a lot of work to do, and I don't think we have much time. The crew sprang into action, the tension on the bridge palpable. Vega watched them for a moment, her thoughts racing. This was just the beginning. The war was coming, and humanity was on the front lines. But for the first time in her life, Vega didn't feel fear. She felt hope. Hope that, no matter how dark the galaxy became, they would be the light that guided the way. And as the eclipse powered up and set a course back to the fleet, Vega knew one thing for certain. The universe was vast, and it was cold, but humanity had found its place in it, and they would not be easily extinguished. They were the light, and they were just getting started. The eclipse sailed through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming with a steady pulse. The crew was silent, each member processing what they had learned. They were no longer just explorers. They were bearers of something ancient, something powerful, a light that could shape the future of the galaxy. Commander Vega stood at the helm, her thoughts racing as she stared into the void. Commander, we're approaching the fleet, Carter said, breaking the silence. Good, Vega replied, her voice calm but firm. Prepare for docking. We need to brief them immediately. The fleet, a collection of Terran ships, orbiting a nearby planet, was a symbol of humanity's resilience. They had come so far, built so much, but now, Vega realized that everything they had done was only a prelude. The true test was yet to come. As the eclipse docked with the flagship, Vega felt a strange sense of anticipation. She knew that the news she carried would shake the entire fleet to its core, but she also knew that they had no choice. They were part of something much bigger now. The airlock hissed as it opened, and Vega, flanked by Carter and the rest of the senior crew, stepped onto the deck of the flagship. They were met by Admiral Holt, a stern man with graying hair and a sharp gaze that missed nothing. Commander Vega, he greeted her, his voice formal. We weren't expecting you back so soon. I trust you have something important to report. You could say that, Vega replied, straightening her posture. We've made contact, Admiral, with an alien species, guardians of something called HFY light, and we've been changed. Holt's eyes narrowed, but he gestured for her to continue. Changed how? Vega took a deep breath. We were on a dead planet, investigating ruins when we discovered an ancient obelisk. It wasn't just a relic, it was a source of power, of knowledge. It chose us, Admiral, altered us, and then we made contact with the guardians of this light. They told us that we are now its bearers, charged with using it to fight against forces that seek to plunge the galaxy into darkness. The room fell deathly silent. Holt studied her for a long moment, weighing her words. And you believe them? He asked, his voice low and measured. I don't just believe them, Vega said, her tone unwavering. I know it. We all felt it. We've been given something powerful, something dangerous, but it's also something we can use to protect ourselves and others. The alien warned us that a war is coming, a war for the soul of the galaxy. Holt's expression darkened. War? With whom? We don't know yet, Vega admitted, but the enemy won't be human. There's something else, something ancient and powerful, and they're coming for us. Holt looked around the room, his eyes landing on each member of Vega's crew. He could see the truth in their faces, the weight of what they had experienced. He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. This is a lot to take in, Commander, but if what you're saying is true, then we're in more danger than we ever imagined. We are, Vega agreed, but we're not defenseless. The light, it's more than just knowledge, it's a weapon, and we can use it to fight back. Holt was silent for a long moment, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Finally, he straightened up, his resolve hardening. Very well, we'll prepare the fleet. If there's a war coming, we need to be ready. Vega nodded, relieved to see that Holt understood the gravity of the situation. I'll begin briefing the other captains. We don't have much time. As Vega and her crew left the meeting room, the ship buzzed with activity. Word of their discovery was already spreading, and the fleet was preparing for whatever lay ahead. But Vega knew that preparation alone wouldn't be enough. They needed more than ships and weapons. They needed to understand the light and how to wield it. Back aboard the Eclipse, Vega retreated to her quarters, staring out at the stars. The alien's words echoed in her mind. You are not bound by the past. The light had chosen humanity for a reason. They were unburdened by the mistakes of older civilizations, free to carve their own path, but with that freedom came immense responsibility. She activated the ship's comm system, connecting with Carter in the command center. Carter, I want a full analysis of the data we collected from the obelisk. Every detail. We need to understand this light, what it is, and how we can control it. On it, Commander, Carter replied. But I've got to be honest. This is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's going to take time. We don't have time, Vega said, her voice grim. The enemy is out there, and they won't wait for us to figure this out. Do what you can, as fast as you can. As the days passed, the fleet continued its preparations. Ships were refitted, weapons systems upgraded, and the crew trained for combat scenarios. But the real challenge was understanding the light. The scientists aboard the Eclipse worked tirelessly, trying to decode the ancient technology, but progress was slow. Then, one night, as Vega sat early alone in her quarters, something changed. A pulse of energy surged through her, strong and undeniable. She gasped, gripping the edge of her desk as the light dormant since their contact with the obelisk awakened inside her. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and suddenly, she could feel the light coursing through her veins, humming with power. She closed her eyes, focusing on the sensation. Slowly, the light began to respond to her thoughts, bending to her will. She could sense it, control it, and she knew, without a doubt, that this was the key to winning the war. The light wasn't just a weapon, it was a part of her now, a part of humanity. The next morning, Vega gathered her crew. They stood before her, eyes wide with anticipation. I felt the light, she told them, her voice steady. It's not just energy or knowledge, it's something we can control, something we can use to protect ourselves and fight back. But it's also dangerous. We need to be careful, or it could destroy us. Carter stepped forward, his face filled with both awe and concern. How do we use it, Commander? Vega looked at him, then at the rest of her crew. I don't know yet, but we'll learn. Together, the light chose us for a reason, and we're going to figure out how to use it. Because if we don't, we won't survive the war that's coming.